Hello everyone, hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're diving into a quietly gripping moment. A mother and child drive 200 kilometers to room 315, turning a sterile hospital night into a test of love, timing, and tiny rituals. Can a single phone, a warm towel, and 10 small steps change everything? Stay with me to see how James and Diep hold the line when it matters most. If you enjoy this, don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next story. James files forms under sterile white light. Paper rasps, machines hum. He works without complaint. The unseparated household registration keeps choking progress. He stays steady and quiet, eyes on the page. His phone vibrates in his palm, a bright pulse in the white room. "Mom?" His voice softens. On speaker, Mrs. Huyen's tone is warm. "Nai and I are coming to visit Diep. 200 kilometers, a choice already made." He gives directions. "Room 315, third floor, Mum." The phone screen glows like a small lighthouse in his hand. Air smells like antiseptic and warm plastic. Diep peers from the bed, her eyes bright with surprise. She had not imagined such care flowing from James's family to her. A thin breeze from the vent brushes her hair. She studies James's face and finds its calm center. He turns and smiles. "Mom wanted to surprise you." He sets the phone down beside a folded discharge form, the device catching the sun and throwing a thin line of light across the sheet. Inside, emotion surges and recedes. She tastes saline at the back of her throat. The past returns in sharp snapshots, nights with fever, days alone against work and worry. Now footsteps are coming, and solitude loosens its grip. Micro-monologue, Diep. "I am small in this bed, but someone is walking toward me." James rests a hand on her shoulder. His palm feels warm through the thin gown. "Don't worry, everyone wants you to get better." The room seems less white and more gold as late sun reaches the sill. A cleaning cart squeaks by, rubber wheels murmuring, then fades. He checks the wall clock. 15 minutes until the doctor's next round. The same clock that has ruled their week now becomes a countdown to relief. He squeezes her fingers once, then moves to pack the paperwork. The phone lights again. A shared location pins their car on the highway. 2 bars of signal, battery at 32%. The small metrics feel like certainty. He texts a map arrow to the hospital gate. Micro-monologue, James. "Keep signals strong. Keep paperwork ready, keep her calm." In the warmed afternoon, the room deepens. Dust flecks float like slow snow. Diep steadies her breath and tests a smile. "I worry my health burdens you," she says. Her voice carries a tremor and a wish. He pulls his chair close, metal legs cool against tile. "I'm here," he says. "I manage what I need from the phone." The word phone hangs between them like a promise. He does not list the errands. He does not measure hours. The door opens and closes somewhere down the hall. A child's laugh lifts, then disappears under the hum of vents. The smell of rice from someone's supper slips in, gentle and human. The ward is a small town with its own weather. Mrs. Huyen calls again at a fuel stop. "We'll be there soon." The timbre is steady, the kind that calms storms in a child and an adult alike. James thanks her and ends the call. The screen darkens. The room holds its breath. Micro-monologue, Diep. "If this is a dream, let the sound of their steps wake me." She studies the lined container on the side table. He has swapped lids and stacked spoons so soup never spills. He has learned the elevator's moods, the pharmacist's hours, the nurse's careful pace. The care feels like a blanket just pulled from sun. "I see your mother as my own," she says, more air than voice. Gratitude warms her cheeks. She turns her face to the glass, where sunlight thins to silver. He nods. "She'll look after Nai. You rest." He checks the clock again. 10 minutes now. He sets a timer on the phone. The soft alarm will be their cue to prepare for the doctor. The corridor hushes. Elevators ding far away. Tires hiss on the road outside. James stands, spreads his shoulders, and smooths the bedsheet edge flat with his palm. He lifts his eyes to the door. The handle turns. Later, the hallway air cools as footsteps slow outside room 315. Mrs. Huyen and Ni step in with road dust smiles. The room warms fast. Ni's small hand pats the blanket, a staccato rhythm against the steady machine hum. The scent of outside air follows them in, sun-baked and faintly grassy. Diep's eyes film, then clear. She glances at James, then back to his mother. "I worry my health burdens, James," she says. The words are thin but direct. Mrs. Huyen pulls a chair close. Her palms are soft but firm around Diep's fingers. "Listen to me," she says, voice even. "He's my son. You are family. We shoulder weight together." She turns a measured look to James. "Go update the nurse. I'll sit with her." Micro monologue. James. Obstacle 1 is logistics. Solve it fast. Keep her out of the storm. James nods and moves. Papers whisper. The phone becomes a tool belt in his hand. He checks lab timing at the desk, confirms the doctor's round, verifies the meal ticket. He lowers his voice with a nurse, thanks her, returns with a simple report. "Vitals in 10, doctor soon after." Back at the bed, Nai leans in. "I'll draw you a sun," she says, already pulling a pen. The cap clicks. A bright circle appears on the corner of a tissue box, a small summer pinned to cardboard. The act steadies the room. Diep breathes in the mixed smells of hand gel and noodle broth from some distant door. "My fields aren't finished," she murmurs, "and Ni needs care." "I'll look after Nai," Mrs. Huyen answers without pause. "You heal. That's the work today." Her tone leaves no room for argument. The pressure shifts from Diep's chest to the chair's wooden arm under her palm. Micro monologue, Diep. Obstacle 2 is shame. I set it down for 1 minute, then another. James slides a fresh container onto the table. The lid fits tight. Steam fogs the inner wall for a second, then clears. "Eat a little," he says. "I met the doctor. All on track." He keeps his voice level. He does not itemize errands. He does not narrate fatigue. Time slows after the checks. The nurse arrives, cuff hisses, thermometer beeps, gentle phrases pass. Nai counts softly to 8 and stops when the thermometer chirps. "Perfect number," she declares. The small superstition makes Diep smile. Evening folds in. Window glass darkens from gold to slate. The vent hum drops half a note. Lights shift to the dim setting that asks for quiet. Nai curls against Mrs. Huyen's shawl, blinking slower. James adjusts the blanket edge flat again, same careful line as before. "Why choose me?" Diep asks into the near dark. "I'm from a past marriage. My health is fragile." Her voice trembles once, then steadies. He sits, knees close to the bed frame, elbows on his thighs. "We first met at the police station," he says, eyes holding hers. "You mistook me for an officer." The memory flashes clean, fluorescent light on paperwork, the smell of rain in his coat. "Then I saw you carry firewood, small but strong. At first I helped out of pity." He exhales. "Then it changed. You were different. It stayed with me. Her cheeks warm. She remembers the bundle of wood he bought, the spare room he offered, the way doors opened without noise. I don't know when this feeling started, she whispers. The ventilator's low thrum nets the words and keeps them close. I manage work from the phone, he says. It's fine, I'm here. The phone rests face down now, silent, but present like a compact promise. He glances at it once and lets it be. Micro-monologue, James. Obstacle 3 is fear. Stand still so hers can pass through. He sets an alarm for morning prep, then another for the doctor's early round. The small chimes lie quiet in the future. He names the supports aloud, not as a script, but as anchors. You have me, you have my mum, you have Nye. Guilt loosens a notch in Diep's chest. The room's cool air feels less thin. She closes her eyes and sees a narrow path lit by simple things. A tight lid, a child's circle sun, a steady hand on a shoulder. Fragility remains, but it is held. Micro-monologue, Mrs. Huyen. Love is not speech. It is the chair pulled closer, again and again. They settle into a rhythm. Nye drifts. James lowers the blinds a finger width to soften street glare. He checks the timer, then smooths the blanket one more time. Their small justice tonight is ordinary, coordinated steps, paid-off details, shared quiet. The result holds. It is stable, but it is fragile. A soft knock gathers in the doorframe. Morning edges in with a soft knock and a practiced voice at the door. The doctor steps inside with the nurse, shoes whispering on tile. Clipboards trade hands. The cuff hisses again, thermometer chirps, pen scratches. James listens, still and precise. The plan is simple, stepwise. Rest, fluids, short walks by the window, recheck labs at noon. He repeats each point back once, not to impress, but to hold it in place. The nurse nods. The phone alarm he set last night ticks toward the first reminder. When they leave, the room exhales. Light skims across the stainless rail like water. James tilts the blinds to soften glare. He hands Diep a warm towel, steam lifting in faint curls. She presses it to her face. Heat loosens her jaw. The smell is clean cotton and a hint of lemon soap. Nye leans closer to watch the ritual, eyes wide, then offers the second towel like a nurse in a play. The simple care steadies all three. Micro-monologue, Diep. This is how fear shrinks. Heat, breath, a hand returning. They make a small circuit of the room. 10 steps from bed to window, pause, then back. James walks half a pace behind, palm ready, but light. Mrs. Huyen counts in a calm voice. 1 to 10, that's enough for today. Nye floats beside them like a tiny moon, holding the tissue box with the circle sun she drew last night. The external clock becomes their friend. Alarms at 8, 10, noon, not to chase them, but to mark progress. At the window, they stop. The glass is cool. The parking lot glints with early sun. A delivery truck idles. Somewhere, a bird tests 2 notes and stops. Diep looks out and finds the future in small sizes. Minutes, sips, steps. She nods once, as if signaling the body to keep joining the plan. James lifts the food container lid a quarter turn. Steam blurs the edge and clears. A little now, he says. He does not push. She lifts the spoon and tastes. Warmth slides down and lands without protest. He notes the time and amount, not as a tally but as proof that the plan works. Micro-monologue, James. We win by inches, every inch matters. Mid-morning, the nurse returns to check vitals and leaves a note. James snaps a photo of the note for later, then places the phone face up where everyone can see the next alarm. He is not performing. He is building a rhythm the room can lean on. The motif pays off. This small device is their map, clock, and lantern. They settle into a quieter hour. Nye hums, tracing the sun again on an empty cup sleeve. Mrs. Huyen knits 2 loose ends on a scarf and tucks it under Diep's elbow. Air cools from the vent and brushes the blanket edge. In this stillness, words can land. "Listen," James says. He does not clear his throat or look away. "I won't keep score, not of money, not of minutes, not of errands. I am here because I choose this life with you." His voice is plain, no flourish. He waits. Diep turns her face towards him. Her breath steadies. "Then I choose it too," she says. "No apologies. I will heal 1 inch at a time, with you, with Mum, with Nee." The vow is not loud. It is sturdy. Micro-monologue, Mrs. Huyen. A family is made where promises fit inside ordinary days. Lunch hour comes and goes like a soft tide. The phone chimes once, then again, and they follow its gentle cues. Medicine, water, rest. By late afternoon, Nee grows drowsy. James lifts her to the chair. Mrs. Huyen drapes the shawl. They form a small shelter around the bed without planning it. Evening returns, cooler and blue. They dim the lights. James warms 1 last towel and wipes Diep's hands, each finger slow, the way one polishes a ring. Nye whispers a bedtime wish into the tissue box sun and tucks it near the pillow. They set the phone to night mode, its screen a faint star. "Tomorrow we walk to the hallway," James says, 5 steps farther. "Tomorrow I'll bring the scarf," says Nye, fighting a smile. "Tomorrow?" Diep echoes, letting her eyes close. The word lands like a blanket. The room quiets until only vents and even breaths remain. The end card image is simple: a steady hand on a blanket seam, a drawn sun, and a phone's soft glow. Hope is not loud, it is routine made sacred. Thank you for watching this chapter of their healing. When have small, steady rituals carried you through a hard season? And which one will you start tonight?
Trong một bệnh viện vô trùng rì rầm tiếng mát, xem lo về giấy tờ và chăm sóc cho Diệp, không một lời than thở. Cuộc gọi từ mẹ anh, bà Huyền, cho biết bà và bé Nhi đang lái xe 200 km đến phòng 315, biến cố cô đơn thành hơi ấm gia đình. Sự có mặt của họ giúp Diệp vượt lại, dù cô vẫn sợ mình trở thành gánh nặng. 3 trở ngại xuất hiện: thủ tục, lịch việc và mặc cảm vì việc còn dang dở và nỗi sợ về tương lai. James giải bài toán logic bằng một cái điện thoại như bản đồ, đồng hồ và đèn pin. Bà Huyền nhận chăm Nhi. Cả nhà cùng dần lên một kế hoạch từng chút một: nghỉ ngơi, bù nước, khăn ấm và mời bước chậm ra cửa sổ. Những nghi thức nhỏ thành công lý hàng ngày: chuông hẹn, tờ ghi chú, mặt trời trẻ con vẽ tay, nắp hộp đầy chặt. Đến khi lời hứa giản dị và từ hai phía, kết quả đứng vững, ổn định nhưng mong manh. Khi hy vọng hóa thành thói quen và ngày mai đồng nghĩa với thêm 5 bước nữa cùng nhau.